We're talking about this whole rape culture thing with Wendy McElroy, who's the author of a brand new book on this very subject called Rape Culture Hysteria: Fixing the Damage Done to Men and Women. Wendy McElroy has written many books over the years. She's a well-known libertarian. She describes herself as an individualist feminist. She has a weekly column at foxnews.com, and she joins us today to talk about this increasingly important topic. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I guess this has been going on for some time. Was there a breaking point where you said, all right, that's it, I've got to write a book about this?
I think it was cumulative. There was no one breaking point. If I were to identify a point, it was at a university debate I had at Brown with Jessica Valente, who was being key in developing the whole rape culture, psychology, and politics. That was just, the empress had no clothes. I sat there and I looked out at the audience of what should be Ivy League students, and I realized that they could not process very simple concepts beyond the dogma of what they had been taught. There's no intelligent discussion going on. So I thought I would do something that could not be ignored.
I remember when I was in college that there were these rape statistics, and it was 1 in 4 women will be raped. But I remember that statistic being plastered on kiosks all over campus. But I don't remember this concept of the rape culture. And I haven't really even heard people talk about it. And I think you would hear it generally only if you're on a college campus and you're hearing student activists or left-wing professors. I don't really hear this discussed in civil society, or maybe I'm just not listening for it.
I think you're not listening for it. There was a very important meeting of the American Law Institute, which is sort of below the radar of most people. But what it is it's a huge organization of lawyers, ex-lawyers, judges, law professors. They look at the legislation that exists now, or should exist, and they draft model law or revise the laws so that they're what they consider to be model now. Why they are influential is because state legislatures tend to adopt these models almost verbatim, or they basically change them in order to reflect regional politics. ALI was trying to push through what was called yes means yes, affirmative consent laws. That's one of the hot things in the rape culture society now. So it may not go by rape culture society, but it actually is very active. That concept, fortunately, was defeated because there was an awful lot of opposition from people who have sanity in the area of sexuality and who want to return to sane definitions within the law.
Can you just explain the idea of rape culture? I think I have the gist of it, but I'd like to know exactly what they mean by it.
Okay. They mean that when you say rape culture, it's like saying war culture. It means that the culture is defined by this adjective before it. And a good place to start, if you don't really have a background in it, is the idea of Susan Brown Miller's defining book, Against Their Will. That basically said that all men are rapists. You're a rapist. It doesn't matter if you've ever raped anyone. It doesn't matter if you would come to the defense of a woman being raped. You are a rapist. And by that, she means that you benefit from the patriarchy. The patriarchy being male cultures, especially white male culture, and often capitalism is thrown in. Now, the main tool of oppression by which all men oppress all women is sexual fear, especially rape, which means that rape is the key to patriarchal power, whether that power is expressed through the wage gap, which doesn't exist, you and I know
right,
that.
Right, of course.
Or whether it's from you opening the door for me, thus insinuating that I don't have enough power to open my own doors. So rape is the key to patriarchal power, to male power, the power of all men over all women. And that's the rape culture. I believe it exists in Afghanistan. I do not dispute that there are societies that maybe it's so extreme that they should be described as rape cultures. I don't see it in North America. As a matter of fact, I see the power differential having been switched and men being basically discriminated against in the law.
You were saying that the way these people think is going to be reflected in the law. But how so? What are we going to see happening?
Well, as I said, the ALI situation, which almost passed but did not, is a trend. They wanted to do the yes means yes law. Now, that sounds innocuous, and it's in response to the no means no law on rape, which is a policy in most universities and a law in other places. No means no means if I have a sexual encounter and at some point I say, absolutely not. It's gone as far as I want it to go. If it goes further, it's sexual assault or rape. Yes means that it's sexual assault or rape unless I give an affirmative yes at every single stage, from being kissed, from nudity, from being fondled, or even mid-intercourse. And if I don't give a yes, the fact that I don't give a no doesn't obviate the fact that it's rape. This is the policy on almost every university in North America right now. ALI was trying to make it state law, and it has become state law in, I think, 2 states.
Let's go through the intellectual framework. What is the foundation on which they build this? Talk about some of these things. Help us understand this.
There's a lot of words you probably have heard if you're on campus, things like narrative, that don't make sense unless you have the idea of social construction. Social construction, to many people, sounds like a common sense idea until they unpack it. There is an active interaction between the culture and your ideas and your identity and who you are. That's fine, but it reverses the usual kind of understanding of it. Take Victorian literature, for example. If I said to you that Victorian literature was a reflection of Victorian mindsets, attitudes, thoughts, beliefs, you'd say, yes, of course. And I'd say, well, and it also feeds back into the culture and to the beliefs, and there's something interactive. You'd say, of course. Social construction says that the beliefs and institutions and such of society do not create its literature, do not create its narrative. The narrative creates the actual human beings of society, their beliefs, who they are, their identities, what they are politically. Who controls the narrative, which creates society, which creates human beings, which creates the very identities of people? If it is male culture, particularly white male culture, then they're the ones who create society. They create every institution of society. They have constructed the institutions in order to express their narratives. And the way that someone can take control of the narrative and change that injustice is to deconstruct the institutions of society, to deconstruct everything out there, and then reconstruct it in another image. Because if you control the narrative, you control the reality. I know it sounds bizarre. I know you live in the real world, but this is a campus culture that's starting to spill out into Main Street. And one of the reasons is because it always had the backing of very strong elements like the Democrats, like the White House. It means there is a gender warfare that has been declared between largely white males and everyone else. Our system does believe the accuser, and it believes her in the way she should be or he should be believed. It takes the charge seriously. It investigates, it asks questions, it proceeds on the basis of, let's find out if this is true, which is an assumption that this really deserves investigation and questioning. It doesn't say, go away, little girl, you bother me. And I believe the victim in the same manner. When someone makes an accusation, I say, where there's smoke, there's fire,
right.
Maybe. But what I want very quickly as a follow-up are some of the facts, some of the evidence. I want to hear the other side. I want to know what's going on. And certainly before I pass moral or certainly legal judgment against someone, I definitely need evidence.
At the end, when you talk about how this might be fixed, return rape to being a criminal matter, demand respect for due process, okay. But then you go on to say, abolish the Department of Education and privatize higher education. Can you just comment on those as fixes to this?
Department of Education is government administration of education. Just get rid of it. If you got rid of that, you get rid of all these policies. Get rid of federal funding, slash the budget. But very interestingly, it's being increased, and there's dramatic increases going through in Obama's plans.
The book is called Rape Culture Hysteria, Fixing the Damage Done to Men and Women. I'm going to link to it at tomwoods.com/669. And Wendy, if you have a website of your own you'd like to tell people about, by all means, go ahead.
WendyMcElroy.com.